Why don't you lead off, Mr. Bob?
Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for coming out. This is part of the function that we perform for the community. We want to seriously get input from anybody who wants to comment to us about this search for the next town administrator here. Buzz and I have talked to all 5 selectmen, so we have some input from them. We're looking for a couple of things: the type of qualities and characteristics that you folks think work here in Hanson. We know there are some qualities and characteristics that would not work here in Hanson, and we want to hear that. We want to hear that from you. We've picked up a lot. We talked to department managers this morning. We talked to some folks at 1 o'clock over at the Combined Senior Library Center, and we're talking to whoever wants to drop by here tonight. My name is Bob Mercier. I'm one of the people with MRI that has been tasked with helping Hanson find your next town administrator. My career, I retired, I thought I retired in 2012. I was the 20-year plus town administrator in Burlington, Massachusetts. I was also a town manager in Billerica, Massachusetts. Burlington, for scale, is about 25,000 people. Looks like a lot more if you've been up that way. It looks like a big city, but it's really not. All of the commercial development is along 128, which is where it should be. Billerica, conversely, is a big town area-wise, and population is about 44,000 people. So that's the predominant communities I served in. I also served an interim gig in Wayland, Massachusetts, and in Boxborough, Massachusetts. And I started a long time ago, I'm not going to tell you how many years, in Maynard, Massachusetts. My partner here is Buzz.
I am Buzz Schinsky, and I am also retired as a town manager. I actually came to Massachusetts in the mid-'70s and was looking for a municipal job, and a huge recession back then. And so I ended up working for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for a few years. And then I was fortunate enough to start as assistant and then town manager in Wilmington. I was there for about 11 years. And then I moved right next door to Andover, Massachusetts, and I served there for five-year terms, 25 years. I was very fortunate. I had a nice long run, able to educate my kids in the school system there, and still live there today. In fact, people say, well, geez, don't you want to move? And I said, no, I spent 25 years getting this town going right. So I want to enjoy it. And I have been enjoying it. I've been enjoying working with Bob and Municipal Resources Inc. on searches. And we've done other studies. We've done capital improvement plans. We've done consolidation studies in other places. But predominantly, we've done this headhunting kind of stuff. And I tell you, it's a lot of fun. We get great enjoyment from it. These are exciting times. There's the graying of the profession in our profession, where people are retiring out, but there's this whole cadre of young people coming up, and it's wonderful to see them. In fact, I get a kick out of calling. I call them kids. Anybody under 50 is a kid. Calling these kids on the phone and saying, "Geez, you've been in East Overshoe for 10 years. I mean, it's a AAA community, AA community, whatever it is." I said, things are going good. You got a reputation. Are you interested in moving to XYZ community? And usually there's silence, because they say, well, wait a minute. I thought we were just going to talk about our kids. Is this a recruiting call? I said, yeah, you're being recruited. And in one funny case, I talked to a person who I thought would be ideal for one town we were working in. And the person said, well, my spouse wants to get closer to Boston, so perhaps I'll let you know. I'll call you in a week. So I got a call in a week, and the person says, no, I'm not interested. We talked about I'm not interested in that town. But when Foxborough becomes open, I want to be the town manager in Foxborough. Well, what it is this person knows that Bill, who's there, is probably 60, 62. He'll age out in a couple of years, It's a small fraternity or sorority of administrators or managers in the state, so everybody knows each other. So they know when they're starting, they know when they're aging out. So this person said, I'm waiting for that job to open up. So that happens. And we have a lot of fun talking to these kids, young people, about a community like this. And this is a very easy community to talk about. You got a great reputation. I told the folks earlier today, your department heads, that we check out the communities ourselves, and I have a very dear and close personal friend who's an official with the Department of Revenue. So every community we work in, I say, Larry, I said, do you know anything about Hanson? Anything I should be aware of? He said, no. So that's a good thing. You folks have a good reputation in Boston with the Department of Revenue. You must be doing everything right, because my buddy would know if you're not. And we would know too, because there would be signs, there would be issues, that sort of thing that we'd pick up on about the community. I think the challenge that you have is that you've been through a number of administrators over a number of years. So the word we get from the selectmen is stability. You're looking for stability. I don't want to put words, in Laura or Matt's mouth, but or Kenny's mouth. But what we're hearing is stability. That if you want someone to stay for a while, to invest in the community. And I don't want to again give away the whole discussion tonight, but we heard some very positive things, and we know positive things about the community. So when we call our friends out there, we'll have a lot of really great things to say. So tonight we have really time set aside to hear about the profile. What kind of manager would you like? What kind of town administrator would you like in terms of personality, traits, characteristics, that sort of thing. So we'd like to hear from you on that. And then after we've kind of exhausted that discussion, then we want to hear about challenges and opportunities. Every challenge comes with an opportunity, but the challenges and opportunities you folks see for the next 5 to 10 years, let's say. What challenges, what opportunities? Because what we'll do is when we talk to these folks, and some of them will call, others will call us, we want to say, well, this is what they're looking for. Can you fit the bill? Yeah. And some people will say, yeah, I'm ready for that kind of challenge or opportunity. Others will say, no, it's not me. It's not going to work for me. So that's good for us to know.
Yeah, and to follow up with Buzz, some of the impediments going forward are what Buzz mentioned. You've had some issues with stability and keeping people here. As Buzz mentioned earlier, it's a very small fraternity. A lot of us know a lot of the folks who are out there in these other communities, and they will ask us about that issue, about stability. If I'm in XYZ community, I've been there 7 or 8 years, and I'm comfortable, and I look back and I see some of the changes that have happened in Hanson, that individual may call us and say, hey, what's really going on? Because I'm interested in moving, but I'm not interested in walking into a place that's going to explode around me, and I'm moving my family, all that kind of stuff. So we have a pretty good handle on that, and I think we've got enough information from the people that we've talked to say we can get people over that issue, because it is something that people think about, and think about yourself in a job somewhere, and if you were interviewing for a job and somebody said, well, for the last 5 years we've had 5 people. You're like, yeah, well, I'm pretty happy where I am, actually. So that's one of those things, but we can talk through that because we think we have a good flavor for the community, that when we've talked to the individuals. Buzz suggested we've talked to the selectmen, talked to your department managers, who seem to be a really good group that you have here, which is good. That's another one of those things that anybody who's interested will call us before they put their app in and say, hey, look, I know they've got this police chief, I know they've got this highway individual, they seem to be really good people, what do you guys know? Before I walk into something. And the board's first issue when I come here is, I want you to change 3 or 4 of these department managers, because that's a tough gig to walk into. And we don't want, and we say it to all of our clients, our role is not to set up somebody for failure. And we will be frank and candid with anybody who applies here and tell them what we believe the issues are. But having said all of that, we think that this is a very solid place for somebody to land. It's a good community. It's an attractive place to live. Geographically, I already had an inquiry from a town administrator I know in the northern part of the state who's excellent. And he told me he looked at Hanson. But he said he's got young kids, he's just got the kids into school where he is, and it's a hell of a commute, and he can't do that. So geography is something that, it's part of life. And so we're aware of all of that. We take that into consideration moving forward. So we're excited. As Buzz said, we listened to a lot of stuff, and we heard a lot of good stuff. Buzz and I just did a tour, by the way, to go around town and take a look at some places. And I know I've talked to Matt, probably you, and I talked to Jim also about the whole Route 27 issue. It's an area that needs some improvement. And we know the facilities that people are talking about out there, but we both are like, and we didn't know it, we should have known it. Man, you got a train station here. Are you kidding me? What an asset that is. There are communities would kill for that.
Yeah. And the parking that goes with it.
And the parking that goes
wonderful.
with it, and that lends itself, particularly with the state initiatives for smart growth and stuff, you need somebody here that can grasp that and grab onto it and say, here's the direction, I think, and talking to the board and the planning board and all those folks, and say, look, there's real opportunity here in this community. It's tough to pull it all together, but it's one of the things, as we heard from people today, that Buzz and I are going to look at in terms of the candidates who apply, somebody who may have done stuff like that in the past and knows how to pull all that together. We think that's an important trait that individual may have. So it's a very interesting, that's an exciting possibility, what's going on, or what could go on 27. So we wanted to take a look at it. We ate at the Meadowbrook, by the way, which was, I think it's $5 buck night for the burgers tonight. So, yeah, so we did well. So anyway.
So your comments, thoughts on profile, if you have a thought or a notion, just introduce yourself, or if you're on a board or committee, let us know. And, we're happy to hear and get your thoughts.
Don't be shy.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Bruce Young, former member of the Board of Selectmen here in Hanson, former chairman of the board, actually a former member of the screening committee who screened for the last town administrator.
Oh.
So we had a good screening committee. We had Dawn here, who was a member of the planning board, myself, and we had some citizens at large. We had a member of we had a Hanson citizen who was a member of a fire department in a neighboring town. And we also had our town council acting as not a voting member, but a participatory member who could screen out questions for us and make sure we were doing everything legally and proper.
Yeah.
And so that worked out well, and we ended up giving the Board of Selectmen what we thought were three or four good candidates. Having been in town government as long as I'd been in town government since 1977, going back to the Finance Committee, I had all my little gotcha questions prepared for the applicants to, in terms that are using terms that are applied to everyday budgeting and finance and everything, and to screen them out to make sure that they did have knowledge of finance and just to make a long story short, what do you offer that a screening committee cannot offer to make sure we get the right candidates? Because as you know from the whole Forrest Gump thing, life is like a box of chocolates. No matter how good you screen people, there's the human quality of life and people have these things that you don't see that turn up maybe 6 months later or a year later that you wish you would know. So what do you add to the procedure that we were not able to add as a screening committee that will make sure that doesn't happen again in Hanson?
Want to start? Or you
Well,
want me to start?
I'll give the broad overview, and then you can jump into the details. Well, today with Google and the internet, we can find out almost anything. I say almost, not everything, but almost. And our staff Liz Mensinger is an expert at fretting out details about our candidates. And she's doing that now with anybody that applies. She's, checking them out, looking at, the East Overshoe Gazette, where they may be a town administrator or something, to see if there's any wrinkle that we need to know about. And some of the wrinkles are fairly normal. Not every board of selectmen and not every, town administrator get along. So sometimes there's people that leave in the middle of a contract for good reason. Nothing embarrassing, they just decide this isn't a good fit. Now, it may look like there's an issue there and a problem, and so we'll find out about that. And that may not disqualify anybody, but we want to know why, and we will ask them, because part of our process is to call them and have a phone conversation. So if there's any issues in their resume, any little gaps, where were you for this, what's this private business stuff between East Overshoe and West Overshoe? What kind of private business were you in? And so we will do our due diligence, and we'll know quite a bit. And having been in the profession and knowing some of these young people, some of these kids, some of these folks, we'll be able to know a lot about them. But and Bob will talk about this in a minute, when it comes to the finalist, what we ask the selectmen to do is to appoint, Jane Smith, tentatively. If they like Jane, out of the three that we provide, 3 or 4, if they like Jane, the motion is something like the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Jane Smith provisionally, depending on the background check and the negotiation of a contract. Now, why don't you talk about the background check?
So the background check on the final candidate is very extensive. I think the board knows, I'm not sure anybody else knows, but our boss, the president of our company, is a retired police chief. He has access to places that I can't go, that he can go. The report that the Board of Selectmen get before they sign off on the dotted line is a 10 or 12-page report on everything that the individual has done in their lives. And it's confidential to the board, but it will track anything that is under a radar screen, whether or not they defaulted on a mortgage 22 years ago, which may be something that is important to people. We'll find that, and we'll see it, and that goes to the board before they make that final offer of employment. The other thing to your question, Bruce, is, and Buzz alluded to it, we know a lot of these people. And we know things that aren't public about some people. And we would not move an individual, if there's a problem, we would not move that individual forward to the board. That's one of the reasons you hire us. We know who some of these players are. And on the outside, it can all look good, but we may know some things that are not so good. And we wouldn't, for the sake of Hanson, we wouldn't move that person forward. We're all over New England, by the way. We do a lot of searches in New Hampshire, in Maine. Buzz and I are responsible for Massachusetts. So we've got a field of candidates that are out there. And again, we know some who aren't as good as they appear to be on paper, and they may be on paper good candidates here. But if we know something in their background that you can't pick up by the Google search, we won't move that individual forward.
And the report that the selectman will get from Alan and the investigator that he employs for this will not be the references that are provided by the candidates. So candidates, if you're watching, give us your usual list of references, but we will also check people who aren't on the list. So you may have the Board of Selectmen in East Overshoe, you may have the chairman, and he has a script, he or she has a script, but, they may call the DPW director or the fire director or your neighbor, or, someone else in the community who is not a reference, not a direct reference. So, they go a person or two or three deep to, find out more about this individual. And if there's any questions, they'll go visit the community and, take a ride to East Overshoot and talk to people there. So, today, it's pretty hard to have a blemish that you're hiding. You'd really have to be very, very clever. And, could it happen? I suppose, but we of the searches that we've done, we haven't encountered that. In fact, if anything, Liz, I never forget, Liz, we had a really great candidate in Central Mass. Terrific man, great credentials. She called us or emailed us and said, oops, this person, just was terminated for a variety of reasons. But on paper, he looked great. Mm-hmm. And it was just, I don't know what happened. I don't really care to know what happened. All I know is he wasn't the kind of candidate we were going to bring forward in the search we were working on at the time.
Yeah, and the other thing, Bruce, that's incumbent upon us to find that right person for the appointing authority, and they know this, Rick knows it, the board knows it. If it doesn't succeed, we'll do the search again for nothing. That's a guarantee we give the community, because we just feel it's important. We just feel it's important. You're our client, and that's who we work for. So, but we don't do that. We've done it once, because we generally are very successful in bringing quality people. So let me talk a little bit further. So the ad is out. It expires on the 30th of this month. And I think we've got, as I look today, I think we've got about 13 resumes that we've received. I've given them a cursory look at this point. That's nothing to be really concerned about. Typically, in all of our searches, they're usually all 30-day searches, 30-day ads, I should say. The serious candidates wait till the last week. They have this discussion over the table with their spouses and say, I think this is a good opportunity for me. What do you think? Can we move? Should the kids come with? All that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, they make the decision on the Sunday before the Monday it's due and send in everything because they've made the decision this is the place they want to be. So the last weekend, we usually double up on a number of applicants because those are the serious folks who want to get us something. So what happens from there, and Buzz mentioned earlier that we're defining that profile and challenge stuff, which we're hearing all day today. We're going to send that, once it's defined and approved, we're going to send that out to the candidates who have submitted. So they get a look at it. We post it on our website. The town can post it once it's cleaned up. And that'll be something else as identification for those folks who are serious about the town of Hanson. Buzz and I, on that Monday, will get the 25 or 30 or whatever the number we get, and we will score those resumes. And keep in mind, all we're getting right now is resumes. Here, hi, I'm Joe Blow. I'm interested in coming to Hanson. Here's why I'm interested. Here's what I've done with my life. We look at that and we score them. When I say score them, we got spreadsheet scoring sheets that he has and I has, and then we compare notes. And it's all about whether or not that person has the qualifications to be a town administrator, has a sense of some history. I'll give you a for instance. If we see a town administrator applicant who's been in 5 jobs in 6 years, we're probably not real interested in that individual. Qualifications-wise, could probably do the job, but we're probably not really interested unless we find something that all 5 towns were really screwed up. That's rare. There's another personality issue involved in a situation like that, in our belief, where that individual we may not decide, even though they're qualified, we may not decide to put into the pool. Once we narrow it down, and we say narrow it down to 10 or 12 folks, Buzz and I will craft, based on a lot of stuff we hear, we'll ask the appointing authority for some questions, we'll define some questions, whether or not it's 3, 4, 5, we're not sure yet, about situations pertinent to Hanson. Not about situations in general. What's your philosophy on municipal management? No, we don't want to hear that. That's coming out of your MPA schooling and all that kind of stuff. What we want to hear is, here's an issue in Hanson that they're dealing with. Tell us, in your experiences, whether or not you've had instances like this, how you dealt with it, and what was the final outcome. And we ask them to respond in a narrative, written. Some people don't like the essay questions. From our perspective, we find out a couple of things. Can this individual write? You'll be surprised. You probably won't be surprised if you're in the real world today. Writing is almost like a lost art. And it's important for us to find out, because as your town administrator, that person better be able to communicate. And it's not just this communication, it's written communication. So we find out if the person can write. If we see 150 grammatical errors, then the person's not even using spell check. And that's a concern. We look at the content of what they responded to. Is it a lot of pie in the sky, ideological stuff that they're thinking? No. We want you to narrow down, drill down into the issue we asked you about, and talk to us about that, and what you have done, if you have experienced that type of instance, and tell us what you did about it, and what was the end result. Did you get thrown out of town? Did you convince the town meeting that it's a good idea? Whatever, just tell us what that result is. So we get those essays out, we give the applicants 10 days to respond. Typically, we lose 2 or 3. That's good. That tells us that person didn't have their primary focus on Hanson. If you're interested in Hanson, you're interested in the process. And if you're not willing to respond to a couple of essay questions, are you really interested? Are you interested in any of the 16 communities you applied for? So that gives us a good sense as to the type of candidate that wants to move forward. We're like teachers. We then score those essays relative to the content, the grammatical structure. Can they put a sentence together? Or does it just run on? And so we're interested in that. So we score that. Once we do that, we come down to a field of whatever it is, 3, 4. We think 3 or 4, not 2, not 6. But we're flexible on that. If we have 6 outstanding candidates, fine. We present them to the appointing authority. We provide the appointing authority with everything: the resumes, the essays, any background stuff we've done, the essay questions, the essay results, our scoring on those, why we did that. And we are involved in the process right to the end. Whatever the appointing authority wants us to be involved in, we'll be there for the final interviews. We will craft questions if the board wants that, questions that are appropriate in today's time. You got to be a little careful on some of the questions you can ask today vis-a-vis not too very long ago. So, and we know what those are. But the questions then can take more of a free fall, a free exchange, if you will. You ask some similar questions to those candidates, but in the answers, any one of the appointing authorities can say, I want to follow up on that with you and explain that a little better than what you just told us, because I'm interested in it. So there's no problem with that. There's no problem with that. At the end of the day, the board's going to gauge all of that information they have in their hands, and then the interpersonal discussion they've had with that individual, and as Buzz said, we hope decide that they have a singular candidate that they want to focus on.
And if they do, we encourage all boards of selectmen to move quickly, because oftentimes the candidates will be in multiple searches. And just recently, we had a young man who had, he interviewed at one place on a Wednesday night, interviewed in another place Thursday night, and he had 2 very good communities, vying for him. So that's not unusual. The other thing is, we have to mention the phone interviews. After we get the essays in and have scored them, we will call those candidates ourselves, and just go over their resume, all right? Any gaps in the resume, any issues, any questions. We will also, talk about their essays, the information that they provide, so that we have kind of a sense about that individual and their seriousness. And we have an opportunity to just, answer any questions they may have about the community. So, between the resumes, between the essays, between the telephone conversation, and between the Google checks that we do on these individuals, by the time they come to the Board of Selectmen in this room, we will have a pretty good idea of who he or she is, and if he or she would be a viable candidate for this job. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I have some questions for examples of what I think would be good. I'm Don Ellis, Chairman of the Planning Board. And the biggest thing is economic development.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody that's had experience with it. We have kind of a unique situation where you touched on it on Route 27 with the train station down there. The biggest issue with that over the years, we've made it an overlay district, trying to get business and residential combinations. And the biggest problem is sewerage. We need sewerage down in that area because it's a aquifer protection area where we have well water and so on. So that to me is very important as far as planning in the town. It's one of the better things. TIF programs to get business to come into the town, to look at the town, and maybe he's got better suggestions on how to develop different areas that have worked somewhere else. We're always open to that. But some of the things that have been, like Bruce mentioned, we were on a committee before, and when I look at it, they send a resume in, and the resume is always spectacular, so to speak, But that isn't what I look for. I look for different things in the individual. I ask questions to see what their answers will be for particular situations, like an open door policy, where you can have access to them. As far as the different departments in the town, that need attention and so on, I think is important. And somebody that just doesn't come in, we've had in the past, wanted to micromanage everything and all of a sudden prove that he or she knew how to run the departments better than the department heads that are there now, and it's the old adage, if it's not broke, don't fix it, and this town runs excellent. All the departments are great in here. I'm also a businessman in the town and dealt with them beforehand and retired now, but they are great, and I've dealt with other towns and they're really, really super people here that run the departments.
We will second that.
Yes, okay. Let's see, what else have I got here? If the individual will give help when it's needed, he's got to have a good personality. If he's going to get along with their directors, which are the selectmen, the individual has to have some sort of personality to be able to deal with this. I've seen, standing back, because I've managed different places over the years. I've worked at Harvard University in Boston, the medical center. I've worked South Shore Hospital in management, and it almost seems as though, and I would recommend that the selectmen probably look into it, to do maybe a survey to get an assistant town administrator on a lower level to come in and help the town administrator, because we got new rules, regulations that come down there are policies that have to be adhered to with highway departments, planning board, subdivisions, and things like that, stormwater management that's in the town, the federal rules and regulations that come in. And it's hard on a town like this because we don't have a lot of money. You know, we don't have a lot of business, so it's hard to do that. But I've seen in other surrounding towns where they do have the assistant and town administrators or managers or whatever their description may be.
Yep.
But they can go out and do the small things where he can or she can deal with the major things, especially the selectmen that need the attention, and in the different departments and so on. You got school budgets that have to be adhered to, and there's other things going on in the town that need to be focused on. The town is growing, but not with residents, but with areas.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, and Don, we've heard a lot of that today. We are aware of the issue on the regional schools and whatever happens as you guys go to town meeting and try to resolve that. That does not mean the issue's gonna go away. We wanna alert whoever's coming in here that is an issue. It's not unsolvable, but it's an issue. I was mentioning to some folks earlier today, we just finished up the Wenham search for a new town manager. Wenham is a small town, beautiful town up on the North Shore, and they're in a regional school district with Hamilton, the Hamilton-Wenham Regional Schools. Excellent school system. Both towns are very proud of their system. The problem is that in this case, Wenham is the smaller player, Hamilton's the larger player, and Wenham is sending less kids, but their assessments keep going up. Sound a little bit familiar? And they're wrestling with that whole issue, and it's a major issue for them. The last 3 years, they had to put an override question for an operating budget just for the schools. 3 years overrides, and they don't think it's sustainable. So we obviously heard all of that, and we didn't want to set up somebody to come in there, and those folks in power think this guy or gal is going to be a miracle worker. They're going to fix this. We softened the blow a little bit by telling them that this is not a fix. Yeah, there's going to be a long process involved in this. Your situation, and I'm just from what we've heard, is not as bad, but it is an issue. It is an issue on how you're dividing up the pie, so to speak, on the regional school funding. So that's something we'll alert whoever is out there. What kind of experience have you had specifically in a regional school district?
Yeah, but I seriously think personality has a lot to do.
Oh, big time.
How they deal with the public that comes in that's irritated about something that's going on, wants immediate attention, not to get turned off, like shutting them off. The experience, the resumes always look good.
Yeah.
You know, but
Right.
when you get down to the nuts and bolts of everything, when they got to deal with the boards, they want to hear progress, and if you can't give it, hesitation and stuff like that. But
Well, in our essays, one of the things that we had that we focused on another time was conflict resolution. The conflict resolution between the selectmen and the town, in this case, the town manager. They had a lawsuit going on, and the town manager was proposing a strategy to go A, B, and C, and the selectmen wanted to go, X, Y, and Z. So they had a little issue to work out, and it wasn't fatal, but it was very public because the lawsuits are typically, and so one of the essay questions that we asked, this gentleman was retiring. One of the essay questions we asked is, how do you deal with differences of opinion, conflicts within your own board, with your board, not necessarily with employees, but with your appointed officials, and how have you resolved it, or how did you resolve it? And we got some pretty good answers from prospective candidates. So it's there's the whole conflict resolution thing that I think it plays into sort of all the characteristics you're looking for in an administrator, someone who can deal with conflict without turning people off, without, alienating that person from the community. In fact, one of the, how do you folks deal with potholes? Do you have
Not bad.
not bad? So you pay Mary, do you pay the pothole complaints, the tires and all that? Do you folks, the state law says you don't have to do it.
Right.
So do you do it or not do it?
We do not do
You don't do, okay. Well, in Andover, we had $5,000. And I told the veterans agent, you're the pothole king. And I said, let me tell you, take care of these people. Don't overpay them. But the last thing I want somebody to do is stand up on the floor of town meeting when we're trying to pass, a $100 million budget, and somebody objects, and then they go into this rant about not being paid for their
Mailbox that got knocked
well,
over.
not the mail, no, that's a whole nother, but for for a $200 tire
Yeah.
or something, pay the darn thing, and don't overpay and prorate it and do all that good stuff. But the last thing I wanted to hear was somebody get up at town meeting and just derail a whole budget discussion because of a measly $200 that should have been, thank you. Anyway, okay, more characteristics, because we're doing all the talking here. Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Marini, recently retired from the Board of Assessors. I liked what you had to say about Route 27 and smart growth, I think, and about someone who's able to write, because I feel that I see other towns, you read in the newspaper, that they have got grants for different things. I think we've been lacking maybe in not maybe accessing or being able to get as many grants in the past. I know sometimes that's with different boards, but I feel if we had an administrator who was pushing people to go after grants, it would be beneficial to the town. Also for the Route 27 and the train station area, we desperately need more sidewalks. I'm also a realtor in town. I have a house right now on the market that's within walking distance of the train, which is fabulous for whoever buys it, but I drive along Route 27 and I say, are they gonna make it safely from there to the train?
Walking in the street.
Right, because the sidewalks only go a short way. If you drive down Route 58, we had sidewalks for quite an area down Route 58. And there's mothers with strollers, there's people walking constantly. You see people walking up and down, two women going along chatting, out for their daily walk. I always see a man and his son, they're out there walking. I just think the town would definitely benefit from more sidewalks. That's an issue for me. Also, you're talking about administrators that you do all of Massachusetts. I want to ask you two, how important is it that the next administrator be familiar with south of Boston or this area? Does it play a lot into, because you can't, from Hanson, when people call me, how do I get there? I want to look at that house. I always say you can't get there from here. Here from there. We're not right next to a highway. So there's, how important is it that they know our geography and how we are related to transportation?
Well, they will learn. They will learn. A good administrator can figure all that out. I mean, they're gonna, a good candidate will be driving around town now, all right? So they'll know you don't have an exit like Hanover, for instance, all right? But it won't take them long to figure out you got a great train station, all right? With great parking and great potential for transit-oriented development. In fact, Bob, you were saying you found that the town got a grant or something for, how was it?
Affordable housing, 48 units, is that? I saw an announcement by the governor. Whether or not you received anything
We've
is,
done quite a bit of work already on the economic
Yeah.
development. We have designated that a site for the state, so we're
Yep.
eligible. Our planner is working on grants.
Yep, she told
We've
us.
got an economic development committee, however, it's headed by the town administrator, which we have not had as of late. But we will get that back on track, and as Don alluded to, we had a project that was a TIF that was kind of a false start, we'll just say. So we've got the underpinnings, we need somebody in the job to do to move this forward.
We heard a lot of that this morning with your people. Your planning director was there, saying, we need somebody to pull this all together.
Exactly.
Because we all want to do this, but we need somebody to keep us on track moving forward.
Right.
Yeah. And so we got that, and you got such potential, is the way I'll leave it.
The other thing you gotta take into consideration too, all these members on boards and stuff volunteer for this, and it's hard. You know, and it's hard to get younger generations involved because they have families, and the families are into sports and things like that, and then they go off to college and so on. So it's another difficulty to be able to dedicate the time and come up with the projects and the research that has to be done into it. It gets very time consuming.
Yeah.
So if there was somebody that was very fluent and had a lot of experience in that direction, would be very, very helpful.
Yeah, and we heard issues with HR, and so somebody with that overall skill set to deal with issues like that revolve around that, human resources and personnel issues or personnel matters. Yeah, we know that that's something that we need to have somebody with skill sets that understands that. You don't have, you need a multidisciplinary individual. You don't have a lot of staff everywhere. So I'm not talking about being an expert and everything, but a general knowledge of a heck of a lot of stuff that goes on in a municipal government.
It shouldn't be a deterrent though for somebody.
No, it won't be. No.
It's not something that's, you know, gonna be a crisis tomorrow.
Right.
It's the direction that the town wants to go in.
Right,
To better the area, because we all live here.
right.
We want it better. We got a nice park area that we're trying to develop, where there was an old county hospital up there
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the center of
We
town.
heard about that, the Plymouth
Yeah,
County.
on that committee too, you know, you
We
volunteer.
heard
for
about Camp Kawani and,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
all
it's
that
got
stuff.
potential
Yeah,
everywhere
yeah.
in town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do. We went by, we look out here, it's gorgeous out here. I mean,
That's the major benefit of any town employee who works in this building.
it's beautiful. I mean, it's just, we're like, where are we?
Yes, sir.
Pretty.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to mention was, I think it's important that as you screen these people, just a suggestion, how much is this, what kind of effort did these applicants put into finding out what their actual job duties are? Meaning, did they take the time to go online and look at the Town Administrator Act?
The serious ones, yes.
Yeah,
In
because the
short,
town
the serious
administrator
ones, yes.
Really lays out
Yeah.
not only what his job responsibilities are, but the limitations of his office.
Right.
Because as you know, and I'm sure you know, some town administrators can take advantage of the fact that it becomes a job that takes on a life of its own,
Yeah.
above and beyond the limitations what's in the Town Administrator Act. The Town Administrator Act not only defines that he's the procurement officer and the personnel director,
Yeah.
and the head negotiator for all union contracts in negotiations with the department heads who have contracts. But it actually lays out that our town administrator is a kind of a weak town administrator,
Mhm.
because he really doesn't have the ability to appoint department heads.
Right.
He can only review the applications and make suggestions and recommendations to the appointed
Appointed
committees and
yeah,
commissions for whom those people work.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
So,
guys link our Town Administrator Act
Yeah.
in your posting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, so,
So to your question, Bruce, anybody who's serious about the town and have been in this field, they'll do their research. As Buzz mentioned, one of
Look
our
at the
most
charter.
recent towns, we had an individual who we thought was a very good candidate. He drove up from Pennsylvania and spent 2 days in the community, him and his wife. I think we really want to, unfortunately, he didn't get the job, but I think we really want to be here. That's serious. that's serious. The town didn't pay for it, came up on his own. Wants to relocate back to Massachusetts, and, so, to your question, that's a serious candidate. We did get him to an interview, and he had read everything. He read the town's master plan, he quoted it during the interviews, he knew about the town charter and all that kind of stuff. He knew about it. He, not he, but another one of the candidates, attended 2 town meetings in the back, just to see what was happening. And who are these people I'm trying to come to work for?
I say that only because
Yeah.
when I got reelected again after a 30-year absence
Yeah.
in 2014, I was talking to some of the people who had been appointed within the last 4 or 5 years, long after we had the Town Administrator Act, and they were actually appointed by the Town Administrator.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Which was in violation of the Town Administrator Act. Drove me absolutely crazy, so
Yeah.
that's the only reason I mentioned that.
No, we don't make the rules, you guys make the rules, and if your town administrator act is what it is what it is, and, that's for your discussion, so. Yeah, and we coach people about that, and we say, did you know, for instance, because as I said earlier, we don't want to set up anybody to fail. And nor do you. You don't want anybody to fail.
It's like a good logic question.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you were interviewing these 4 or 5 people for the
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
which ones are you going to decide that you're going to appoint? If the guy comes out and he says, well, it's certainly going to be the best qualified under these conditions, and he doesn't say, well, I don't appoint anybody,
Yeah.
the Board of Selectmen would have to appoint them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like a good gotcha question.
Yeah, and we've seen that instance, and over time, you know what happens, Bruce? The Board of Selectmen and the town administrator, in the type of structure you have, they really get it with each other. They know where the lines are drawn, and the board has confidence that administrator is gonna recommend to them the most qualified candidate, and the selectmen just say, yeah, that's the best person, we know that, and, so.
Yes.
I'm Corinne Cavato. I've been a resident for 32 years. My husband retired from the school system here.
Yeah.
He worked here for 35 years. I agree with everything about Route 27. Just zip it up quickly. At first, when I came here, a big career. I went to work, came home, ate dinner, went to bed, and started all over. But I recently retired, and I said I'm going to start going to the selectmen meetings because I want to know more of what goes on in the town, because I could really never participate. I traveled a lot.
Yeah.
I have been a trustee of the library for 5 years, the past 2 years chair trustee. And I know it's already been mentioned to you, we're in desperate need of both a new library and a new senior center.
Yep.
So those 2 are very important to me. What I would like to see is someone, a town administrator that is pro-library, okay? That, because it is, wherever you go, and I'm not putting down any other department in the town because they all work very hard, but the library always ends up at the bottom. And, there's a lot of people, you don't need anything, everything is on the internet. We service the whole community. Various things, books, we lend out e-books, everything. Technological. We have all kinds of programs for children, almost every day, with exception of Sundays. We have a great foundation that has events, a lot of author talks, different events. We try to, if one is geared maybe for children, then maybe something else is for the mid-teens, something for adults, something might be women more interested, men more interested in something else. And so we're very active, but the building was too small when it was done, to begin with.
It's interesting you comment about that, and we're both familiar with that, obviously. We're familiar with your situation. We both built libraries in our community. I redid an old town hall in Barica. If you go through the center of Barica, that's their library now. That was a great project for us. Buzz redid the whole Andover library. So you don't have to convince us.
So that's, someone who's going to participate. So the 5 years I've been a trustee, only one town administrator ever came to a trustee meeting when invited. You know-
You invited?
We invited,
Okay,
actually came.
yeah,
The past one came on his own.
yeah.
But then we had, questions, so invited the person back. And out of all the open houses we've had, only one town administrator, and that was a different person, came. So the libraries are very important to towns, especially when you had the recession in 2008, maybe we're up for another recession. I mean, I remember, at that time I was volunteering, I was on the foundation. A woman came in and thought that the library would write her resume.
Mm.
And she was in a small computer room. I mean, she was having a meltdown.
Oh.
So I looked at everyone, I said, I've got this, I've had to deal with this. I went in and I explained to her what the services we provide, but I knew she didn't know where to begin.
Yeah.
But I had been laid off in that time period, so I had already gone through that and
Yep,
secured
yep.
another position. So I kind of walked her through everything, made notes for her. So when she left, she was very calm and left. But I had that experience to share. That's not really what a library does, is write people's resumes, okay? But, a lot of people at that time period had worked for companies for 30 years.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But they come a lot to you. Sometimes they feel more comfortable there, so they'll come where, and this kind of surprises me, we need to get food, clothing, things like that. So we always have a big container for the
Okay,
food pantry. We run at Christmas time always for donations, and there's a community Christmas club in the town, or a big organization, and we put the Christmas trees out there with the wants for the families. So I think we do a great job in trying to meet the needs of the community.
One of the themes we heard today, Buzz, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the themes we heard today was somebody who has some sophistication, I'll call it, in terms of managing and maintaining facilities across the spectrum. And that's a difficult thing, because we asked this morning with some of the department managers, so who takes care of your facilities? And it was a range of responses. I take care of my own, this one takes care of that, blah, blah, blah. We know you got some abandoned buildings in town, or shored up buildings that you're trying to find active uses for. Somebody needs to do a grand scale and understand facilities and look at all of this. We heard from the highway folks, they need something different than what they currently have. So we heard all that, and so it jumped out at us as, as we're looking through these folks who are coming in here, somebody with a strong facilities background might not be a bad quality to have.
Absolutely.
That can pull all this together. And then, of course, you go through the capital improvement planning and where you fit these needs everywhere that you have in the capital improvement plan, with a reasonable expectation that they'll get funded at some point in that plan. So it needs somebody to really pull all that thing together. And you got the people here. Your finance department seems to us to be very good, but you need somebody to lead that.
Right, we have, the library's already done the preliminary work
Yep.
to have a new library. Now we're in the looking for an architecture stage.
Yep.
The advantage the library has, I think, over other departments, I may be wrong because I really don't know every department in the town, but we will get 50% reimbursement
Yep.
from the
Yep.
MCLB, which is a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
So
Big
it's
number,
not
yeah.
like we're going to be asking for the town to give us all the money, and also we're raising money as well.
Yeah.
So we've been active in that, and we had a large donation a couple of years ago. My next door neighbor donated a large amount of money. So, I enjoyed living in the town. It's a great community. Past few years, I've gotten to know more and more
Yeah.
people, and that's why I came to select the meeting, to get to know everything about the town. One thing I was really surprised, and then I'll finish. I ran a major corporation for 25 years. The salary for a town administrator here is low. That's all I'm gonna say.
The selectmen have done a good
Really.
job on addressing that.
Yeah.
We noted that with them, and they've moved that,
Mhm.
which puts it in a, not the best environment, but a competitive environment.
Right. Yes, sir, other comments, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry I got here half an hour late, probably a lot of this has been plowed over at least once, but my name is Phil Clements, lifelong resident of Hanson, and I used to work in Wilmington. I remember you, Buzz. Charles River Labs.
Oh, yes, the rat farm,
Yeah,
great
well,
place.
purveyors of quality rodents.
Oh, okay.
And it grew, as you know, and I had a privilege of seeing a lot of this growth. It went from a successful but modest company, like, a few tens of millions of dollars, to now it's approaching $2 billion a year, global biotech.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, compared to the problems we solve there, some of the things we do locally doesn't seem all that hard. But the point of me being here tonight is, I've seen a lot of change in Hanson, and that's been discussed here. We have, there's industries and employees that we've lost, but now we're repopulating with commuters who bring money home from other places and have the bedrooms here. Transportation-oriented development, great opportunities, things like that. But what I spend most of my volunteer time on is green type things, conservation. I chair the Conservation Commission. I'm on the Open Space Committee. I'm on the same committee as Don here with, for the reuse of the old hospital acreage.
Yep.
Formerly, I was on the Town Master Plan Committee. Very rewarding experience. That was, I hope that plan gets dusted off and looked at. Trails Committee, et cetera. It's aquifer protection. So I think some of the things that we would like to see a person come in here and be aware of, appreciate with the right kind of perspective is that even though Hanson has been reached certainly by suburban sprawl, it hasn't been overwhelmed by it.
Right.
There's a lot of acres that are not paved.
We
Some of it's so
we
wet.
saw that by
We
just driving
saw that,
around.
Yeah.
A large reason for that is because it's been so wet. The
Yeah.
agriculture we had depended on wetness. It was cranberries.
Right.
And there's a few shreds of that around, but the water is still with us. Rain and gravity, they'll always do what they do. And but the town is relatively rich in natural resources, open space, water. We have an outstanding town swimming beach.
Yep.
I don't know if you've seen it, but you should go there before it.
Before it gets cold?
Well, actually, we go there when it gets cold. We had a fundraising ice polar plunge last January. So come back for that. Under recent leadership, we have done things like we've become a green community. We've designated a Tree City USA. And we've
That's
done
good
other
stuff.
things. We've
Yeah.
done other things that we think are both good in and of themselves, but also keep us near the front of the pack when it comes to eligibility and sort of readiness for grants of various types. And it all ties together. It's not just save the
Right.
trees. It's
Right.
many things, including the economy and the quality of life, resiliency and so on. In conservation now, we're balancing what I think is probably not the last, but probably some more to come, questions of solar versus trees or non-solar space. Where do you draw the line between green energy and carbon storage, and so on and so forth. We have partnerships with the federal USDA, Department of Agriculture, on a 100-acre parcel, retired cranberry bogs, being restored to natural wetland with federal money. We're right in the middle of that right now. It's kind of interesting and fun.
Is there something going on off Route 27 on that?
That's off of Route 58. It's near Indian Head Pond. It's over that way.
I think we saw it. We're just
But
not sure.
you may also have seen up there where the largest open space we have, we share with Halifax, the Burridge Pond Wildlife Management Area.
Right.
Overall, it's like 2,000 acres. If
Sure.
you're a turtle, that's where you want to be, because it's the
It's
best
huge.
place on the South Shore.
Yeah, it's
But
huge.
it's wildly popular, miles of walking trails, and right down there. You don't have to go to the White Mountains or the Berkshires to find open space like that. But someone who has an appreciation and awareness of these things, that it's true that those things don't generate jobs, but they keep sane the people who come home from their jobs
Right.
to live here.
Yeah, yeah.
And talk about health, nothing better than walking and that sort of thing. We are on the verge of water independence and security, because we have wells, But we've identified a 99% sure new source of wells in town so that we will not be as dependent on Brockton or other strange confabulated regional systems. We feel we could manage our own house, thank you very much, with those things.
Are you self-sufficient now?
Yes, except for some legacy systems where back from the late 1800s, water going to the city of Brockton, water going to Abington and Rockland passed through Hanson from its sources in other towns. So Hanson residents happily tapped in, and there's still some legacy there. My own house on Route 27 has Brockton water, or well, what you gonna do?
Yeah.
But we are doing a lot of things with our resources that other towns wish they had the opportunity to do. If we miss these opportunities, it won't be that great. There is a need, again, to balance things. We need to balance stormwater management with other aspects of road and impervious surfaces. As we grow,
Yep.
I think we try not to miss opportunities to do something green and sustainable whenever a bigger picture thing is going to happen. May that not stop, but rather accelerate. But our open space and recreation plan and our master plan, they're on the books.
Yep.
We hope someone who comes in for an interview as a candidate might have already glanced at those. Because they were very
I
informative.
suspect they will.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's astonishing and disappointing to me how many people who are candidates for elected office down have never read either one.
Yeah.
And we would like that to change.
Yep. We had your new agent
Oh.
with us today.
Yeah, Frank is a great guy. I've worked with him for a number of years because he was a member of the.
Yep, he told
Trustee
us,
before.
yep.
And he happens to have a PhD in aquatic science.
Yeah.
Because when we look at things like water quality, we don't have to look any further than out here to find the blue-green bacteria that's plaguing the globe.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we have an opportunity here to keep working with the transition that's been delivered to us, economically and socially and so on and so forth. We would like to see a balanced approach to things. And some people have never heard of Article 97 of the state constitution. You know, why can't you take a piece of conservation land and just sell it for houses? Well, Article 97.
Article 97 is pretty restrictive.
And if you do those sorts of bad behavior things, it'll cut the legs out from under all your state grant applications.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a lot of things we could do. I think a lot of people live in town now, not they grew up here like me, but they work in places like I used to up in Wellington,
Yeah.
and they do those hellacious commutes.
Yeah.
And when they come home, they like a community that's
Yeah.
where they can afford the taxes
Yep.
and go swimming at the town beach, etc.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's the way I think the town is gonna sell itself, is because of the environment. The environment that's here, the transit-oriented development, schools, the attributes that, I don't know if you'd call yourself a suburban or a rural community or on the edge.
Neighborhood.
What's that?
Pick your neighborhood.
Right.
Some of them, there's some of each.
Yeah.
Some is still rural.
Yeah, you guys are on that cusp, though, where you're gonna be balancing, you talk balance, you're balancing that whole issue of making yourself more attractive for those type of commuters to get to Boston, while dealing with what impact those new commuters who move into town have on the town and all of the qualities you just talked about. So you're at that, it's a fine balance. A lot of towns are wrestling with it.
We get to decide what the next couple of centuries are gonna be like.
Yes, you have that luxury.
Yep. Yep.
All right, other things? We've heard from almost everybody. Miss, can I put you on the spot, or? What? Well, that's all right.
You can comment.
No, all right. All right, I don't live in town either, but I think it's a great place. Matt, Mary, do we miss anything? No?
You covered pretty much the same things we talked about during the day.
Yep, yep.
Nice job.
It just, other challenges, other challenges that you see that we need to be aware of, or that the prospective, person who we'll be talking to, male or female, needs to be aware of.
I think you covered on it, touched on it with the problems between Whitman and Hanson and the method of assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We know that's an issue.
And my my opinion is we wouldn't even be going through and even talking about changing the method that we've had for the past 60 years, which is based on population percentage. Okay, and nobody, either from Whitman or Hanson, have ever had a problem with it in the past 60 years. But because Whitman now has a major financial problem and Hanson doesn't, I'll just put my spin on it and tell you, could that possibly be the reason why Whitman wants to go one way and wants to see it imposed on Hanson?
It would shock me.
One fell swoop out of Hanson's pocket.
It would shock
Put
me.
it into Whitman and solve their financial problems for maybe the next 5 or 6 years?
Yeah.
Could be, but, I mean, that's something you've already touched on, and you probably are gonna make that person aware.
Well, let me
Yeah.
just ask you this, just in terms of the two towns, the two boards of selectmen, good relations, strained relations amongst themselves?
I can tell you from a particular individual on the Whitman Board of Board of Selectmen who I've been in touch with, if the other Board of Selectmen members hold the same viewpoint on this particular issue that they do, there is a large separating divide there. I'll just leave it
You
at
need a
that.
mediator.
Yes,
Well,
you do.
like I said, I've lived here
Yeah.
32 years. And I don't know all the ins and outs
Yeah.
of things that have gone in the past. But they're two completely different towns to me. We live on the edge of, we're like 4 houses from Whitman. We live in Hanson. And because of that, they have sidewalks. So consequently, when I go for a walk, I walk on the sidewalks down to Whitman, around the park and that whole area and come back. We use the pharmacy there. I'm a proponent of the small pharmacies. And it's probably because my mother was a pharmacist.
Yep, yep.
Which has a lot to do with it, and she knew Mr. Duval way back when.
Right.
But I find like the people who have the businesses that I go to have always been fine, but there are some people who hold positions. They're not my cup of tea. They're not Hanson's cup of tea. I'm not gonna say anyone's name or anything. And I think from just myself attending selectmen meetings since April, I can tell people work together. They really do. And I even said one night, it was to Laura, I said, I'm really impressed, everyone gets along. Not that they don't have disagreements,
No,
that's not.
yeah.
But they get along, they respect each other, they listen to each other, and just from the different departments that have come to these meetings, look, I'm just sitting here listening, I get that same sense of respect.
Well, here's the other thing, Corinne, that's important to us. Your next administrator, whoever it happens to be, is going to, I can guarantee you, watch a couple of selectmen's meetings. They do. And they say, if it's 3-2 votes on everything, with people actually coming to fisticuffs, probably not a place I want to come. So the image that the board presents out there, everything's public today, everything's on TV and stuff. So people have access to that, and they can watch it. And if they see what you just mentioned, people who are cooperating, they disagreeing, that's what democracy's about. But do it civilly. One of the issues today that we both feel, and we feel strongly about, I think, is civil discourse has gone way beyond the pale. Way beyond the pale. And I'm not quite sure why that's happened, but it's destructive, especially at the... Tip O'Neill, I'm old, Tip O'Neill once said, all politics is local. That's where people, the rubber hits the road, that's where people get their return on investment, most of them. Most people don't know what the heck's going on in Washington, or even to a degree with the State House. But when you live in a community, that's when you touch and feel and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And for the executive board in town, and I compliment the board here, to have the ability to talk to each other civilly and say, you know what, I don't agree with you, but I'm going to take my position, but let's just vote this one way or the other and move on. And that's an important message to send out to people who are actually gonna look at this.
Yeah, and I think that, when we talk to prospective candidates, we'll tell them, it's a good board. They work together. And it's not divided, it's not, it's not factions that's gonna make your job as a town administrator difficult.
I just have a comment about the Whitman and Hanson. Whitman has a lot of business. We are lacking in business, but yet the people here in this town hall run this business here very well in that, we're not lacking, our taxes aren't crazy, we pay for what we vote for.
Yeah.
And, I think they should be lauded. I think it's very well run.
Yeah, the thing we talked about when we were driving up here, through the Boston traffic, by the way, we talked to Mary about that. Please postpone a bit so we can get there in a reasonable time. Was just that. We know, and we knew this from talking to the board members and stuff, you don't need a change agent, somebody to come in here, we're gonna change this, we're doing this, we're doing that. You don't need that. You need somebody to pull the skill sets you already have in place and pull them all together and move it in one direction.
Just some help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some professional help.
Just as a wrap-up, you just mentioned that anybody who wasn't able to attend or wants to send comments, where to get in touch with you, that would be great.
Yes, and it was in the newspaper, but for those of you who are viewing at home, if you want to send a confidential email to us about the search, you can send it to Hanson TA Recruitment, all one word, no caps, no periods, no nothing. Hanson TA Recruitment at mrigov.com. So Hanson TA Recruitment at mrigov.com.
And Mary, that's on your website?
It's on our website
Okay.
as well,
Yep.
but just people may not
Yep.
be thinking,
Yep.
look, if we just
Yep.
kind of
And
promote it, it'd be great.
we welcome comments because, one of you folks may decide, tomorrow morning, gee, I should have told them something, and here's your opportunity. And we will summarize the comments that we get for the selectmen. And, we may get none, we may get a half a dozen, I don't know, whatever we get, we won't reveal, who they came from, but we will tell them the subject matter. It could be traffic, could schools, could be who knows what. But whatever it is, we will let them know generally, what we're hearing.
Yep.
And so, for those candidates that may be viewing this from home, the closing date is September 30th, 8 a.m. At mrigov.com.
Yes.
All right, yeah, thank you very
We good?
much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for coming.
Nice job tonight, folks. And I have some business cards here of my own, if you'd like to have a card. I have a few here.
We're probably on the website too, right?
We are.